Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2025 Keystone Leadership Awards. Please welcome the President and CEO of Keystone, Christine Scanlon, and tonight's Master of Ceremonies, Shelby Coffey.
Okay, one comment before we get started. As a longtime MC, I have to be allowed to say, as a prerogative, this is the best dressed and most lively Keystone crowd we've had in years, maybe ever. And
Really?
I give credit to you.
Really? Well, let me look. They do look kind of good. They do. They stepped it up.
Good tailors.
Well, Shelby, it's our 50th anniversary.
This is a big one. And I'm ready.
All right, we're going to give folks 1 minute to take their seats because we want to hear from Shelby Coffey, who's also an awardee tonight. Shelby, how long have you been doing this dinner with us?
It must be 15 years, but I was thinking of the 50 years, which is our sainted Bob Craig started this, and you've done such a wonderful job bringing it on. And it reminds me of all things, Saturday Night Live, which is also in its 50th year.
Dear.
And
Well,
has quite a history also. All right.
All right. We do need folks to take their seats, please. I know, this is a lively crowd.
Very excited to be here. We've got to calm it down for a little bit so we can get started and stay on time.
You know, they blame us when it runs late.
Of course.
And that's
blame
entirely not fair. It's entirely not fair. We're the entertainment for the evening, and people crave us and what we do
a
up
little
here.
back and forth.
Exactly. It's not our fault at all when things run a little long.
An expectation is a setup for a resentment.
Entirely. It's what the people want, Shelley. It's what the people want, and we have to deliver on that.
Yeah. But maybe we'll withhold a little bit. So welcome
we
to
can
everyone. And the invitation is to begin eating your salad.
Please eat your salad. Do not watch your salad wilt while we start our program.
And thanking everyone who helped organize this, especially including Christine, Judy O'Brien, Brandy, Southern, Megan Barrett,
Morgan Barrett.
Oops, sorry, Morgan Barrett. And Lisa Daytok and Marcus Chavez.
And Marcus. All right, so while you're eating your salad, that does not mean you're talking to your table mates, though, right?
Well, just a
yeah.
little.
I think you should not talk with your mouth engaged anyway. That's what I learned.
Emily Post has been dead a long time, my friend.
Shoot. Okay, fair.
So we have a special thanks for our sponsors, presenting sponsors, Denton's and PepsiCo.
Yes.
So.
Yes,
now,
I actually want to emphasize that. Our presenting sponsors, Denton's and PepsiCo, really launched this event for us tonight, and we could not have had such a beautiful evening without them. So I want to take one moment to really recognize that.
I'm believing you.
All right, so I want to just take a bit of your time to recognize this is our 50th anniversary, which for anyone, thank you, but that is not actually a recognition of me. It's a recognition of this organization, our founder, Bob Craig, our extraordinary staff, our amazing trustees, our amazing energy board, and the folks who have had such commitment to the outstanding work this organization does. And I want to take just a moment to reflect on that milestone. For any of you who are in the NGO, nonprofit community, or who work or are affiliated with one, achieving 50 years is no small milestone. It's in fact incredibly difficult to do. And a number of you know and have been with us through those ups and downs, twists and turns, We've had our moments of staring at the abyss and gratefully have pulled back from that and become not only a better organization, but stronger in our work and in the belief in our mission. I tell our staff, and I've said this before to the crowd, but I actually mean it. I don't think our work has ever been more important than it perhaps is at this moment in time. Keystone brings out people's better angels. And in fact, people want to see the solution sets that Keystone brings forward despite people's differences, despite people's interests, despite people's rhetoric. We dig deep with them and we find ways forward in a time of urgent issues. And I believe that our work will continue forward because that's actually what people believe and want. Thank you. "50 years ago, our founder, Bob Craig, a surrogate father to me, had a visionary idea that the most complex, divisive issues could be addressed through not confrontation, but collaboration. He believed in the power of civil discourse, of listening deeply, and of bringing people together to find common higher ground. It was a radical idea at the time, and apparently it's still a radical idea today. From those early days in the Colorado Rockies, Keystone has grown into a national force for dialogue and problem solving. Whether we're helping bridge divides on education, natural resources, energy, or agriculture, we forward Bob Craig's founding belief that progress is possible when people come to the table with open minds and a shared commitment to solutions. We're not naive. We understand the push of politics that is pulling at our civil society today, but we still believe that there are pathways forward. This anniversary isn't about looking back, it's about affirming that mission for the next 50 years. The first 50 are the hardest, that's what everyone tells me. And tonight we're especially grateful to be surrounded by so many of you who have helped shape that legacy. To commemorate this journey and the work that lies ahead, we put together a short video that captures the heart of Keystone, its history, its impact, and future. Please enjoy.
This is a huge accomplishment. Not a lot of nonprofit organizations make it to 50 years. And I am so proud of this team and the people, the board, the energy board, all of the commitment that meant that we were able to be here today. And boy, would Bob Craig love this moment.
I used to call Bob Craig the Great One because he was simply the best that we had to offer. World-class mountaineer, Hall of Fame skier, first director of Aspen Institute, and of course the founder of the Keystone Policy Center.
You know, Bob pioneered the process of non-adversarial conflict resolution, which really affected many of us in our lives.
He just knew that if we set people down and had them talk with each other and listen to each other, that they could learn from each other and find a way to go forward that maybe they never thought they could before because they didn't know everything.
And honestly, we'll be here another 50 years because the reality is what we do is important. What we do resonates with people. People want to see our work because we bring out the best in people.
Yet there's a certain optimism that they bring to the table that allows people to think, well, so no one's been able to get anywhere with this for the last 30 years, but we're going to give it a shot, a real shot this time, and we're going to get somewhere. And once people start telling you that success is possible, suddenly it happens.
Keystone Center provides an environment where people can learn to trust each other and solve problems, complex problems, in a world that often doesn't want us to solve those problems.
The Keystone Policy Center has had tremendous impact, not only in the state of Colorado, but across our nation. They are a convener. They bring people together to share perspectives and ideas, and particularly in those policy arenas where we have significant conflict. They are leaders in helping us achieve the right solutions for the people of our state and people of our nation.
I think one of the reasons Keystone is here to see through this 50th anniversary is our staff, again, the board, our energy board, our former trustees, the people who are really committed to our work, believe in the work.
I think in collaboration, you try to find people who have the talent and have the knowledge, who in the process of collaboration contribute something. So I think that the standard of people that you bring to the table in what we call the Keystone process is ultimately the most important, one of the most important elements of the whole process. And out of that, collaboration then emerges as something, can emerge as something significant.
Bob told me many times that the Keystone Center was his chance to create something that would last beyond himself. He wanted his idea that something was expansive enough that other people could be involved and feel a part of it and continue it beyond him.
I'm so grateful. I'm just so grateful for this organization. And the people I get to work with, what talent, what brilliance. I could not have chosen better than to spend my career here.
Thank you. I love seeing Bob. That always makes me happy and makes me cry. But those are blessed things. I want to note on the tables that you see tonight, we have a picture of our hometown, Keystone. All of them, not everyone has had the joy of coming to Summit County, Colorado, so we wanted to share some of that with you. And you should come visit. A lot of people want to. I'm just noting that, and we'd be happy to welcome you. As part of our 50th anniversary celebration, we wanted to do something a little different. Oh, I need to mention, Terry Craig gave me this beautiful butterfly. We work with monarch butterflies and preserving the monarch. So shout out to Terry. I meant to do that in the beginning, Terry, but since you all saw her on screen, I had to. So we wanted to recognize, not only honors our legacy, but the kind of leadership that has helped to shape it. We're bringing key leaders together for a special conversation, one that looks at the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead and how we can continue to build common ground in a rapidly changing world. We're so proud to present these individuals with the Key Leader Award for embodying the values that define Keystone over the past 5 decades: collaboration, innovation, and a steadfast commitment to the public good. These honorees represent a diverse range of experience and sectors, but they share a common purpose: to bridge divides and create meaningful, lasting change. These 4 honorees are Jerry Steiner, who's a longtime Keystone trustee and founder of CoverCress, a company driving climate-smart innovation in agriculture. Jennifer Morris, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nature Conservancy, one of the most respected conservation organizations in the world. Llewellyn King, who is a distinguished journalist and the creator of White House Chronicle, whose thoughtful commentary and deep reporting have shaped public understanding on issues ranging from energy to governance. And Governor Tom Vilsack, former governor of Iowa, former U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, and now the Chief Executive Officer of the World Food Prize Foundation, and who has spent his career championing rural America and innovation agriculture. I will note each of these individuals or their organization has been affiliated with Keystone in some way, shape, or form for decades. In fact, Governor Vilsack, and actually that's the title he prefers of all his titles, which I sort of really appreciate, was on this stage presenting an award probably 20 years ago. So it's an honor to be on this stage tonight with these fabulous awardees, and I would love to welcome them to the stage with your applause. Thank you, thank you. I have to note, unfortunately, Jerry Steiner is unable to attend tonight due to illness. He's as disappointed as we are. We would love to see him, but I want to just say a couple of things that Jerry wanted me to share with this crowd. He often talks about what he calls Keystone's special sauce, and it comes down to three things: bringing together people who wouldn't normally meet, and creating the conditions for them to truly listen and see issues from new perspectives. That includes Jerry's own experience, I will note, with Keystone. Building trust and relationships over time, even among former opponents, which opens the door to creative, lasting solutions. And finally, investing the time and needed trust to ensure those solutions are durable and not just undone at the next political wind or market shift. Jerry sees Keystone as a catalytic force, stepping in when challenges are too complex or politically sensitive for government alone, and where markets aren't ready yet to lead. He's especially proud of one initiative that began right here at Keystone. I know Glenn Prickett's in the room, who joined Jerry in this effort, Field to Market, which now includes nearly 200 members across the agricultural value chain. And we also want to give a shout out to Field to Market, which is currently holding its annual meeting in Kansas City. We are live streaming to Field to Market's meeting, just to let you all know, and is a powerful example of how collaborative, measurable approaches can drive sustainability and lasting impact. So we're grateful for Jerry's vision and voice, and we will carry his insights with us. And again, we're sorely disappointed he is not with us. With that, we will carry on with our three awardees. We have some questions that we would like to pitch to all of you, and then engage in some dialogue together. Jennifer, I'm going to start with you. Again, our long history together, which has been amazing. I think TNC has held a seat on Keystone's board for probably pushing 40 years, so almost from the beginning. So I want to talk about our partnership, and it continues today through work with our tribal and indigenous communities, and how these kinds of partnerships help TNC evolve its approach to conservation.
Great, thanks so much, Christine. It's wonderful to be here, and I just want to, on behalf of the Nature Conservancy, say thank you for this award, and also happy birthday. You're so right, 50 years is a long time, and really just thrilled to be here with all of you. I'm actually accepting this award on behalf of the Nature Conservancy. I have some incredible colleagues in the room that have been very engaged with you. Carlos Fernandez, who runs our Colorado program, Michael Doan, who is the outgoing head of our Provide program on agriculture and water, and Jason Albritton here, who runs our North American climate policy work. So this is really all about them and the team, and just absolutely thrilled to be here. So Christine, as you noted, Keystone, like TNC, is all about bringing together people from different walks of life, different philosophies, different life experiences. And one of the things that we're so proud of is the collaboration that we've done really in kind of two big areas. One is place-based work in Colorado and in the West, specifically working with Ernest House on, and thank you, Ernest, for all your collaboration over the years, on really how we work better and be the best partners that we can be to tribal peoples and indigenous nations around the US and around the world. Specifically in Colorado, we've been working in an area near the Zapata Ranch, which, hands up, who's been to Zapata? Okay, several of you. I haven't been myself, but Carlos promises me that he's going to take me there. And we have over 2,000 head of bison, which have now been transferred back to the rightful owners, the tribal nations that are in that area. And that is because of the collaboration with Keystone. We're also working very hard on restoration of the Yampa River. I was very pleased to be able to float that river last summer with former Governor Bill Ritter and many of our TNC Colorado trustees who really were talking about the experiences of being in Colorado and the critical issues related to, of course, a lot of people moving to the state because it's an incredible place to be, but also the pressures of energy and general water use, agricultural production in the state. And so we've been collaborating very well with Keystone, bringing, again, partners together to really help solve some of the biggest problems of the West. And that, of course, is water. And one of the things we're also really proud about in collaboration is working with Julie Shapiro and her team on the recent Colorado outdoor strategy, and really having not only a vision for what Colorado outdoors should look like going forward with the pressures of lots of people coming to the state and climate change, et cetera, but also having really clear measurable outcomes of what that will look like going forward. So we're absolutely thrilled about the collaboration over 40 years with Keystone and look forward to another 40 more.
I love that. I love that. So thank you. I have not been to Zapata either, so maybe I'm.
I want to make it pretty clear about the jobs that I've had. When I was asked which job I preferred among the 4 public offices I've had, I've always indicated that the secretary's job was my favorite job, because in essence it's like being governor of 50 states. I use the term governor out of respect for the current secretary, so there's absolutely no confusion, because there only can be one secretary at a time. But be it, the Department of Agriculture is one of the great institutions ever, and I've always extraordinarily been proud of the work there. So I just want to make sure that some of the people out in the audience are going, wait a minute, I thought, make sure they understand.
That's very, very helpful and clarifying.
Yeah, this is a great question you ask, and I would explain it this way. First and foremost, there's comfort in numbers. When people are going through a rather significant transformative changing period, where change is occurring and change is occurring at a very rapid rate, you can sometimes be overwhelmed. But when you enter into a collaboration, then you realize that the people in that room share the same feelings that you have, and there's actual comfort in numbers. There's also the opportunity in that collaboration to fully appreciate and understand where the opportunity is within the challenge of the change. Oftentimes we see change as a problem. I think what we need to have is a mindset that we challenge ourselves to say, where is the opportunity in that change, in that challenge? I think a collaborative effort also stimulates creative thought. Keystone knows all about this. You honestly believe in the fact that if you put smart people in a room, committed people in a room, and you challenge them to come up with a common sense solution, that's 99 times out of 100 is what happens. And that's because creative minds working together, working off each other, result in better solutions than we might be able to get if we had just one set of mindsets in the room. And then finally, there's efficiency in implementation. If you have a collaboration, then everybody understands and appreciates their particular position, their particular responsibility, their duty in terms of whatever the common problem is, and everybody understands what the plan and the vision and the strategy is going forward. So you save time doing it through a collaborative process. So there's absolutely the only way to tackle really gnarly problems is by getting folks in a room, challenging them, and finally trusting them. Trusting them with the belief that notwithstanding the hard feelings, the emotional passion that they bring to the table, at the end of the day, reason's going to prevail. And they're going to find common ground. They're going to find that common solution.
Thank you. You've just restated Keystone's mission, so I appreciate you doing that so eloquently. Llewellyn, you've been a part of and around Keystone's Energy Board. Energy Daily we received that in our office for many years. As a longtime reporter, observer of energy policy, what do you see as the most pressing or promising trends in this moment of transition?
Well, the transition is continuous. Energy has been in transition ever since a cave person decided to put something on top of the fire. and good stuff happened. It was better to eat, or it boiled, it was easier. And of course, it got a huge jump in the beginning of the 18th century, and we really got shaft horsepower from created energy rather than natural energy coming from water, or worse, human energy from labor, or labor from animals, oxen, horses, etc. So we're on a great journey, and it's the human journey. The journey of energy is the human journey. We need energy to live the way we live. I believe that you could make a very good and very convincing case that energy is a human right. I was born and grew up in Africa, and I can tell you that life without energy is poor in all respects. It's also short, it's hard, and the quality is not there. Energy is a great blessing to the human race and an essential part of it. The challenges ahead are going to be accommodating the new demands put on it, particularly on electricity. Electricity, the refined form of energy, was having a fairly steady existence. At one point, the security analysts on Wall Street asked Tom Kuhn, who's here tonight when he was president of the Edison Electric Institute, to show growth. Now, I was talking to a utility executive tonight, and my friend from CPS, and he said that they had something like 28 people who would like to get in the queue, data centers, and 10 they've signed up. This is a huge growth in demand. Another Texas utility told me that they would increase fourfold, perhaps, if they took in all the potential new demand that is available to them, and is going to be satisfied. And it's a very extraordinary moment when something which we thought had reached a plateau suddenly is facing a mountain of demand. We will meet it. We will meet it with various ways, as we have in the past, particularly when science and engineering are brought to bear on a project. Back in the 70s, I sent Richard Myers, who was the first editorial employee of the Energy Daily, over to listen to the Deputy Secretary of Energy, Jack O'Leary, talk about natural gas. And O'Leary said, "Stop it, Richard. Natural gas is a depleted resource. Over, finished, got that?" And then, of course, this extraordinary combination of entrepreneurialism and science, government and private enterprise, and engineering produced the fracking revolution. So you don't know. You've got to be very, very careful when looking at how you're going to solve a problem, not to extrapolate from just what you know. And I'm very fond of the remark, it's apocryphal, he didn't say it, but Henry Ford is alleged to have said, somebody said it, what the public wants is a faster horse. And often I think we get trapped in that kind of thinking.
Well, this provides a brilliant segue to my lightning round question for each of you. What's one barrier to progress that we need to stop accepting as inevitable? Governor, I'll start with you.
Greg Page was the CEO of Cargill a number of years ago, and he gave a great speech at the Chamber of Commerce when he talked about the tyranny of ore, the tyranny of ore. That we were basically creating situations where there was a choice. It was either this or that. And he suggested that what we needed was a change of mindset to use the word "and," looking for that common solution. And I think within our legislative process, there seems to be a desire to find the solutions and the compromises in the votes within one party, as opposed to within the body, whether it be the House or the Senate. And I think there is an opportunity here at some point in time for leadership to understand that maybe, just maybe, the country would be better served if in fact there was an effort to try to find the votes and the compromises within the entire House or Senate, than as opposed to a single body or single party. I think the founding fathers were very concerned about fractions and very concerned about parties and what it could potentially do. I don't think we necessarily have to accept the fact that all of the solutions are in one party or the other. I think they're in both parties.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Jennifer.
Yes.
I see you nodding along as well.
Yes, absolutely. And just to pick up on what the governor just said, I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to nature. You know, I think one of the barriers has been that there's this perception of a zero-sum game between development and nature, and we at the Nature Conservancy, and I know many people in this room, just fundamentally disagree with that. We've done some polling recently of conservative Republicans. Almost 90% of them say they want the U.S. government to actually invest more in conservation and in nature-based solutions to climate change. So that just demonstrates that there are solutions coming out of both parties. And so I think we need to get beyond this barrier of, you know, that we're us against them, that we can find common ground when it comes to things like nature.
Thank you.
Well, it's not often that I'm...
Yeah, we can applaud this statement as well. Yes.
It's not often that I'm speechless, but Jennifer and the governor have sort of covered my points, and that is the limits that we set on ourselves, the limits we assume to be absolute. And we're looking at an extraordinary example of pushing back on what we thought was absolute. We had thought we had reached a stage of scientific development where future developments were predictable, that it was a straight line development, something you could draw on graph paper. And along has come artificial intelligence. It hasn't just arrived, but essentially only for a couple of years has the public at large been aware of it. And it is going to change everything. The way the steam engine changed everything, the way the airplane changed everything, the way the cell phone changed everything. And it's going to have a huge impact in every aspect of life. And it's going to have a large impact in the energy sector, on the management, particularly on the utility side, on the management of utilities, and not only on providing the electricity to keep AI going, but also its uses in the electric sector. We're going to wring more out of old systems with it, and we're going to conceive of new systems that were not possible. We're going to get a situation not analogous with what you have in aircraft, where you have fly-by-wire, where in fact computers and not the pilots are on the other end of the stick, because it's just more efficient and pilots can't react that fast. So you're into an entirely new period where everything which you thought was something positive isn't, where every barrier can fall, and where the possibilities for human development are just extraordinary if we are not foolish and do not allow petty and uninformed political movements to capture our future.
Thank you. I will note, if you don't read Llewellyn, you should. He's a brilliant writer and so eloquent and quite a journalist. And a legend, I will say. Llewellyn, I know you're not a futurist by trade, but I have often thought you, in fact, really are by calling. So thank you. I want you all to join my thanks and gratitude for these amazing leaders. Each of you has not only brought your own leadership and change to the world in what you are doing and have done, but we are a better place for the work that you are engaged in, and your lasting impact will be felt as a legacy, not only for the work that we've engaged in with you, but also the imprint that you have on this country, and we're grateful for your service and grateful for all that you are doing. And we're honored, we're really honored that you've joined us today on stage. And thank you. And we appreciate you for your award, and we have to take your photo.
Thank you.
I think you're supposed to take our,
Nicely done. Well done. Thank you. All right. Now for the happy time when we get to put on the feed bags and enjoy your dinner, and we'll come back afterwards with circus hijinks and all sorts of things. Eat away and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Shelby Coffey.
All right. Oh, thank you very much. I've done nothing to deserve that, but I'll take it anyway. So I hope you enjoyed your dinner. We have a special treat now, a slight change in the program. In a determined breach of protocol, Clint Vance, whom I can hardly believe was even invited back to the dinner this year, is going to introduce our next awardee and has a word or two to say. He promises to be short, which will be a mercy. Thank you.
I'm so grateful that my comments are written because I'm absolutely speechless after that beautiful introduction by Shelby. And I'm standing in for our co-chair tonight, Mitch Jackson, who's written a beautiful tribute to our next awardee. Our next awardee is someone who understands that leadership isn't just about results, it's about responsibility. It's about building systems and cultures that create value for families, communities, and future generations. Stephen Williams is the CEO of PepsiCo North America, where he leads some of the most iconic food brands in the world. Under his leadership, PepsiCo has expanded its investment in regenerative practices, forged meaningful collaborations across the agricultural sector, and shown what's possible when global companies take local partnerships seriously. And it's those partnerships that bring us here tonight, because Stephen understands that real, lasting impact happens when people work together. That's the kind of leadership Keystone values deeply, and why we are proud to present him with the Keystone Leadership Award. Joining Stephen for tonight's fireside conversation is someone who knows the agricultural world inside and out. Neil Caskey, CEO of the National Corn Growers Association. Neil has spent his career advocating for farmers, advancing sustainable practices, and ensuring that rural voices are heard and respected in the national dialogue. Please join me in congratulating Stephen Williams and welcoming Neil Caskey to the stage.
Flip that. All right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Ah, very good.
Take that. Ooh, that's kind of heavy. Thank you.
Wow, lovely. That is that's one heck of a trophy, isn't it,
That's a
Stephen?
very nice trophy.
Yeah. Well, good evening, everybody. I've been introduced professionally, but that I'm on this stage with you, the CEO of PepsiCo North America, I think it's worth sharing a personal story about me. I am undefeated against a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. You know that about me. I've shared that before. And maybe that's why I'm up on the stage with you tonight celebrating this great award. Either way, congratulations officially for this incredible award. Yeah. Congratulations to Pepsi and all you do. This is about common ground, and I know that that's something that you have been very, very intentional and the rest of your team at Pepsi and working with groups like mine, like NCGA, and many others. And so if you could just tell us what's driving that at Pepsi.
Yeah, well, first, I want to thank Keystone for this remarkable award. When I got the call, I was like, you talking about me? That's good. And two, Neil, I want to thank you for what you do for our farmers and for the rural communities that you work in. I think, here's what I'd say. The business we're in is a team sport, right? I mean, there are so many opportunities across the food value chain in the United States. I think we have the safest, most resilient food supply chain in the world, but it doesn't happen without collaboration and hard work across every part of it. And when we think about our business, it starts on the farm. It ends in the store or in a pantry or with somebody eating a Cool Ranch Dorito, but at the end of the day, a Cool Ranch Dorito isn't a Dorito without corn. A Lay's potato chip isn't a potato chip without a potato, and you don't do that singularly. I mean, I have the privilege to lead a large organization that makes, moves, sells, and markets some of the world's leading food brands and beverage brands. But, at our core, we're rooted in agriculture. It all starts there. And so that's why I think, we don't have a business without highly motivated, well-trained people, and we don't have a business without farmers that grow. And so I think having a urgency around collaborating and doing things together is it's not just a good idea, it's an imperative.
Well, speaking of collaboration, and you mentioned backstage that we spent a lot of time the entire day together, as did other leaders here in this audience, and so that's because of Pepsi's commitment to collaboration with farmers and our organizations. We have a council, the Food and Agriculture Council that Pepsi stood up. Do you want to talk about that and what you're trying to accomplish there?
Yeah, I tell you, we started about, I think it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago was our first meeting. We convene a couple of times a year, and we call it the Food and Farm Council. And it's Neil and all his counterparts across the farming verticals, and we spend a lot of time, and I love the way Keystone talks about it, we spend a lot of time in dialogue, not a lot of presentation, a lot of time in dialogue, and really trying to discuss safe issues. Now we say, it's Chatham House rules, we don't talk about a lot of the stuff when we get outside, because there's some tough issues that face the industry, and we try to deal with those together, and we listen, and we dialogue and we debate, and I've found them extremely helpful. We do some here, we do some in other locations, sometimes on a farm, sometimes maybe in a factory. We do other things other than convene and meet, but we do have an intense relationship, I believe, that's building over time. One of the things I firmly believe that trust is built through frequency and transparency. And frequency and transparency, I'll also say a lot. My team probably gets tired of me saying it, but I firmly believe that transparency builds trust, and trust adds speed. And when you're in an environment where you need to get things done, you also need to be able to get things done fast, and you need to trust that the partners that you're working with have the total system's best interest in mind. And I firmly believe in the 3 years that we've been involved in this. We spend time with our farmers, and we decided when we started really pushing out and working through our farmers with sustainable agriculture, as an example, we found out we didn't know what we didn't know, right? And so that was one of the reasons we said, let me take a deep breath, and let's go build out this Farm and Food Council to really help us understand what we don't know, and help us be great listeners and better partners for all our farmers around the country.
Well, thank you for that, and it shows up in the way that you do partner with growers across the land. I know one of the topics that we spent a lot of time today on is obviously food. Americans are passionate about food, and the conversation in this city right now is really centered on that. The president's the MAHA Commission and their report is certainly evidence of that. We're talking about food. We're talking about food ingredients. We're even talking about pesticides. And we certainly believe that consumers deserve to know what's in their food. I mean, that's a conversation that we certainly welcome. But it's also a confusing one. And so, how do we navigate that?
Yeah, it's tricky. I can't believe we're going to talk about that today, but right here among all our friends. But we are. So, here's what I'd say. I think, we talked about it today. I firmly believe the consumer is the boss. And, at PepsiCo, we've been listening to the consumer for years. And whether it's, sodium, sugar, ingredients, we've been moving along because the consumer has spoken. What I would say is, I think in times like these, leaders are going colors and dyes. They want to be able to pronounce the things on the bag. If you think about it, for a lot of our brands, whether it's Lay's, I'll use it because it's one of the leading food brands in the country and in the world. Our yellow bag or plain Lay's is a potato, it's oil, and it's salt. It's pretty clean, pretty clear. Now, some of our products aren't that clean, and one of the things we've been working on a long time is making sure we don't get too far ahead of the consumer, but we move with the consumer. And I would tell you, we're in a position to do that, but I also understand that everybody in the industry isn't in the same place that we are. Whether it's resources, whether it's the scientific know-how, there's a lot we need to bring the industry along, not just be heroes because we have the capability to make certain changes. And so, I think it is important that we, because of the time we're in, science is still king. Our food supply chain, as I said at the beginning, is the safest in the world. And I think we need to guard that with everything we've got and make sure that we don't confuse the consumers looking for less artificial and whether, the food is safe or not, right? And so I think that is where we've got some work to do and a lot of dialogue here in town as well as in the States to make sure that we're having the right discussion to make the right decisions, not just for today, but for the long term.
You talk about trust and connecting with the consumer. The Super Bowl ad from this year, like it was just a beautiful spot of a little girl that's grown a potato is really moving. The best spot, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. The game did not go well for me, but that ad
was a terrible game.
Made the difference. And so as we wind up this conversation, just all the change that you're leading Pepsi through, you have, and you look ahead at, what's in front of us right now. What gets you excited about agriculture?
Well, I tell you, and so I think our clock ran out, but first that ad, I got to talk about it because it was inspired. If you haven't seen it, Google it. It was the Super Bowl ad, but we're now running it over and over, and it was a young lady, or she was actually a little girl, and it was inspired by one of our farm visits to one of our potato farmers in Wisconsin, and his daughter followed him around like the whole day. She was on the harvester. She was doing all this stuff. We're like, is that safe? He's like, hey, she's the next generation farmer. Yeah. So this is what she does, right? And we were like, this is too good not to put on the biggest show on earth. So we used actors. So we didn't use the little girl, but it was inspired. It was inspired by that. So here's what I would tell you. I am convinced that people will ultimately make the right decision. I'm inspired by our people. I'm inspired by our farmers. I'm inspired by human progress and the fact that we're going to end up where we need to be to protect what we know we need to, which I'll go back and say it again, our safe, resilient food supply chain is an advantage. And I know we'll end up in the right place to connect because of people.
Well, amen to that. And
all right.
Well, I don't see a hook yet, but I want to end before we do and just say thank you for your partnership on behalf of grower groups and growers, and congratulations on your award. And thank you to Keystone for allowing this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was an amazing award, and appreciate all the remarks. We're going to show a quick video highlighting some of our education work, which is a cornerstone of Keystone's work. From producing detailed data-driven analysis and reports that frankly have been picked up quite a bit in the media of late, to partnering with communities on the ground to create new models of learning and engagement. Building on that legacy, Keystone was selected by federal partners to create the Rocky Mountain Family Engagement Collective, a regional initiative that brings families, educators, policymakers together to strengthen student success through authentic community-led partnerships. The next video offers a glimpse into that work and the transformational impact it's already having across the region. I will note there are 12 states doing this work, and we are the #1 model that the Department of Education refers to and how to do it best. So I want to shout that out to our education team. So with that, we'll show you our video.
Our Rocky Mountain Family and Engagement Collaborative, which is a federal grant that really is a capacity building opportunity for us at Keystone to work with so many different districts and regions to help them and school districts understand how to have a better engaged family so that the student outcomes are better.
Overarching, we're looking at building out resources, providing training opportunities, coaching opportunities for leaders of this work, and then building collaborative networks that people can learn together. From the Colorado Department of Ed to then the principals to districts, all of those folks going down, those types of resources are being built out for each level of that work. And then we launched our first cohort district. So each year we're able to take on about 8 to 10 schools, depending on how large they are. And what we do there is we go into a 2-year project with them. And we offer professional learning opportunities for every staff member within Montrose Public Schools receives 5 trainings, really around the evidence-based practices of what can a teacher do in this space. In addition to that, families are also starting their work. And so we are providing the training to families around basic civic engagement and really helping them understand what their voice means and providing opportunities for them to practice it before they go into the schools. So this will all culminate into year 2, where we run a year-long co-design process, and we support the district in facilitating both families, teachers, all of the staff and stakeholders coming together to make a new policy. And we help facilitate that conversation and provide it so that they can then do it on their own once they're done with the cohort.
Without having families really engaged side by side with the teachers, what's happening at the school is in isolation from what's happening at home. And so this is an opportunity to merge the two and create a better condition for the students ultimately to learn.
I mean, I think Keystone is uniquely positioned to do this work really well. When you look at the other 12 grants that they have out there, that initial how we all work together and build a collective that is trying to go towards a common mission, it really is the Keystone way of finding the higher ground and doing that work at the professional organization level first. And what we are being acknowledged for is the cohesiveness right off the bat. And so we took a lot of time really in those first 6 months to build the conditions of our team to then be able to go out and present this work collectively. And so I think that's really just shows true to how Keystone does their work and how we do that. We have the hard conversations at the beginning so that we can move forward and see impact where it's possible.
Thank you. All right, this is a particularly fun award for me because my partner in crime, Shelby Coffey, is finally allowing us to recognize him for the true journalist that he is. I will note he has tried to deflect us since we asked him to accept this award for months and months. He wants to talk about other things, not himself. We have coached him into allowing us to celebrate his esteemed career. We have turned it over to Sally Quinn to try and keep him on track. There are no guarantees that will happen. So I'm going to at least share with you some of his history. Shelby has been a true part of the Keystone family for many years, a guiding voice, a trusted advisor, the heart and soul of this very event. Year after year, Shelby has helped shape the tone, the spirit, the storytelling, and make this evening so meaningful. But tonight we turn the spotlight to Shelby, not for the role he's played on this stage, but for the extraordinary legacy he's built. Shelby is being honored tonight with the Keystone Leadership Award in recognition of his remarkable career as a journalist, a career defined by integrity, insight, and a deep belief in the power of the press to inform, elevate, and unite. From his time at the Washington Post to his tenure as the editor of the Los Angeles Times to leadership roles at CNN, Shelby's work has always reflected a fierce commitment to public service and an unwavering dedication to truth. He has not only chronicled history, he has helped shape how we understand it. It's hard to imagine a more deserving recipient or a more fitting moment to recognize him. Actually, we thought about giving him this award last year, and then we went, it's our 50th next year. We must do this next year. Joining Shelby for tonight's fireside conversation is another journalistic icon, Sally Quinn, longtime writer for the Washington Post, whose voice has helped shape American political and cultural dialogue for decades. And for those of you who admire her writing as much as I do, her new novel, Silent Retreat, was just released yesterday. So you get to be a part of her book tour, which is starting tonight with us. We're thrilled to have her with us tonight. Please join me in congratulating our friend and honoree Shelby Coffey and welcoming Sally Quinn to the stage. All right, we must take a photo. We keep forgetting the photos. We're dancing. You're the rose.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Anywhere she'd like. Whatever Lola wants. I take it back.
So today, Shelby called and we were chatting about tonight. And I said, well, I was right in the middle of working on the roast for him. And he said, roast? No. I said, well, I thought this was a roast. He said, no, this is a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Possibly the last one ever. So I'm glad you're here.
Well, I first met Shelby about 56 years ago when he was a model for a piece I wrote for the Washington Post magazine about the sexiest bachelor in Washington. And boy, did he know it.
Not necessarily. That was the picture with the cigarette, and we had no money at the magazine for a real model, so I was dragooned into it.
Well, okay, I promise no roast tonight. When he first came to the Post as an editor, I really didn't like him. I thought he was arrogant and conceited and one of those UVA frat boys. And
all true.
And much to my chagrin, he soon became style editor and my boss. Shelby had a tendency to rewrite my copy, which I didn't like. It didn't seem to deter Shelby that I was living with Ben Bradley, the editor of the Washington Post. Well,
what could go wrong?
But Shelby was a Golden Glove boxer, so he wasn't afraid of anybody. One day, Shelby inserted a word, tyro, into one of my stories. Remember that? I didn't know what it meant, and I was incensed that he thought he was a better writer than I was. I never used that word. It just really pissed me off. So that night, I complained bitterly to Ben. And Ben, who adored Shelby, he laughed and said, Sally, he's just pissing around the perimeter to define his territory.
A phrase that lived forever.
It's all true. Fast forward, Shelby became the greatest editor of style ever, a rising star at the Washington Post and one of my closest friends. He also went on to have one of the most distinguished, if checkered, careers in journalism, which is why we're here tonight to talk to Shelby about his Lifetime Achievement Award. So Shelby, why are we here? What made you go into journalism?
Well, good question. I think it has to do, the 50-cent word for it would be curiosity. How does the world work? What are the major forces in it? Who are the people who set the agenda? And as you mentioned about the style section, Ben Bradley invented that. It had famously been the women's section before and had changed in one day. It had Mrs. Dean Rusk pouring tea for other State Department wives. Nothing wrong with that. For and about women. To the next day, I believe it was Diana Oughton, one of the weather women who had blown up a townhouse in New York. And Washington was incensed and amazed. But over the years, we worked on the section, and I should also say, to brag on Sally a little bit, the word was the 7 most frightening words in Washington were first of a series by Sally Quinn. And for those who remember it well, Sally had some of the greatest profiles of people who passed through our sleepy little village by the Potomac and wore various elements of dress, and then when a new administration came in, had another kind of dress that they wore. Sally got to the heart of what these people were trying to do, and that was what we tried to do in the style section. So understanding what drives people, what makes them happen, and the elements of American society was what first pulled me in. And you kept me in. Thanks.
And you kept me in. We both worked in the golden age of journalism, which ain't no more, as everybody knows. What was it like for you to work for 2 of the great families of newspapers, the Grahams of the Post and the Chandlers of the LA Times?
Was I ever lucky?
Ben used to say, an editor is only as good as his owners, and he loved the Grahams.
That's absolutely true, and it was a great lesson I learned from Ben. I was enormously lucky to first off go to work for the Graham's Washington Post, Ben Bradley's Washington Post, in a time of growth. And later, when I went out to the Los Angeles Times, all of the lessons I'd learned from Ben about paying close attention and being aligned with the publisher, if you possibly could be, paid off. I think that one of the things that now is lost to some extent in America is that you have fewer of the families that have regional papers that grew, like the Binghams in Louisville and the Knights in Miami, and they're owned by corporations, or not corporations, but rather by hedge funds. And you have a diminution because of the nature of advertising, shifting away from newspapers and into various types of internet and social media advertising, so that you don't have the strength. There is no more Times Mirror, which is amazing.
You were a favorite of Kay Graham's and still are a friend of Don Graham's. What was it like working for, being around and socializing with them, particularly Kay? And what did you learn about life, business, and the world of power?
Kay was fabulous, as you know. She, perhaps you've seen the TV series called The Swans about Truman Capote and the women in New York, which all begins with his reintroduction of Kay Graham, whose husband had committed suicide, reintroduction of her after a year of mourning into New York society with the black and white ball. So Kay would come back from New York with the most delicious stories about what was going on up there, which we would somehow try to work into the style section. You helped us in that on occasion. And I learned also that Kay, I'll tell you one story about her, and I think you have a hand in this. After I'd moved to Los Angeles with my wife, who is an emergency room doctor, whom I'm very proud of, I asked her one time why she went into emergency room. She said, it's a no BS world. And I said, that's why we're a great team. I'm from the all BS world. And Kay said, you've got to come back for this party. It's very important. And I just started making a good bit of money, so for me. And my wife had always dressed in St. John's and other things. I decided we'll get a Chanel suit. And lo and behold, I could just call. Chanel would bring the suit down. Pretty girl shows me how. I get 2 of them. And we go and walk into Kay's front door, and she looks at her, and she could only say this, and we would only take it from her because she had coached us and had us to parties and groomed us, in effect, as coming stars. And she looked at Mary Lynn and said, now you look like an editor's wife. And that was because she had seen Sally, who dressed to the nines all those years, and Sally was the paragon of the editor's wife.
Well, whatever that means.
It's meant as a compliment.
Okay, thank you, Shelby.
I'm saving it for the roast,
This
though.
is not the roast. So through Kay, you met and got to know people like Margaret Thatcher and Henry Kissinger. Did they have any influence on you?
Well, it was tremendous fun. One of the things that Kay Graham did, and we've only got 50 seconds left, but she would have Margaret Thatcher, then the young leader of the Conservatives, not even prime minister yet, and Henry Kissinger, and the head of the CIA, and Jerry Brown, and Jessica Lange, Julia Childs, all down to lunch. And it was a wonderful way to meet a wide range of people. I did stay friends with Kissinger because we syndicated him at the Los Angeles Times. And those were possibly the greatest days in Los Angeles when I'd book him into he would call up at 10:30 in the morning and say, Shelby, would you like to have lunch today? Which meant 2 things. 1, the big lunch had fallen through. And 2, somebody was going to pay for lunch, and it wasn't him. It was going to be me. But we were both making $1 million a piece from his syndication, him personally, me corporately. And the restaurant owners who would have taken it easy if Schwarzenegger or Jamie Lee Curtis or any of them had walked in were agog at Henry Kissinger, which led to my theory that always, if you can, be on the other coast with the celebrity, and you'll get much more of an impression.
What do you see as the biggest changes coming in journalism now?
Probably one to end on. In the good old, bad old days, you would pay $100,000 for an ad for BMW in the Los Angeles Times, and it was called spray and pray, meaning you put the ads out and go to 1.5 million people in Los Angeles basin and hope that somebody came in or a few people said they'd seen it. Now you can, thanks to the internet, see that you, Sally, looked at BMWs, you were interested in 4 doors, you were interested in white paint and other things, and so I can directly contact you. I don't need the big papers. And that's how the advertising model eroded greatly. There is an analogous thing on the journalistic side, which was, as they say in business school, what gets measured gets done. And so more and more, the question of, did you get how many people signed up for your story? And we can keep track of that, and we can know how many it was. Used to be, we said, we wrote for 3 friends and an editor back in the good old days, and not necessarily aim for the highest and best uses of journalism. Which I should end with saying is about people in dialogue with their news gatherers and their community. And that's why it has always struck me as one of the important things about Keystone, that it emphasizes the dialogue and keeps us going back and forth trying to find the middle ground.
We're almost out of time. I want to just ask Shelby one question. I don't know whether you all have heard of the Grant study at Harvard that started in 1938. It was a study to examine the lives of extraordinary young men, and there were about 200 in these 4 years. One of them was my husband, Ben Bradley, and the other one was Jack Kennedy. And the idea was they studied them all the way through their lives. They're all dead now. And many books have been written about the Grant study and its findings. The conclusions were really surprising. Those who were rich, successful, famous were not the happiest. The ones who had the best lives were those who had the best relationships. And I would like to say to Shelby, you've had a very good life with Dr. Mary Lee Coffey. So explain how you've achieved that happiness. Because you've been rich and famous and successful, but you've had this wonderful relationship too.
She is the best thing that ever happened to me. As Warren Buffett said, always be careful about who you marry. It sounds important, but it's even more important. She brought out the best in me, and I like to think I did some of that for her. And the children are just great. So thank you very much, and thank you for this evening. And thank Christine for the kind words.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. We're about to present our final award of the evening, but we have one last story to share. It's about a project that holds a special place in our history and in our future. The Keystone Energy Board is Keystone's longest running initiative, and I know a number of you are a part of the Energy Board. It's formally began nearly 4 decades ago, and it's grounded in the same principles that launched Keystone itself: inclusive dialogue, respect across differences, and a commitment to practical solutions. It traces its work back to our early years, engaging in tribal and indigenous leaders on issues of land, sovereignty, and stewardship, work that continues to shape our approach today. Over the years, the Energy Board has brought together leaders from across the energy landscape, industry, environment, government, and communities to address some of the most urgent and complex needs and issues and interests today. With that, we have a quick video, and then we are going to have our final awardee, who is our congressman from our district in Colorado, and we couldn't be more thrilled to have him here. But first, a video celebrating our Energy Award.
The Keystone Energy Board is a group of incredibly dedicated people in the energy industry that come from every aspect of the industry. We have utilities, industry, producers, NGOs, people from the government sector, people from the philanthropic sector. And we're all able to come together 3 times a year to talk about some of the most pressing issues that are facing the nation and the world.
The Keystone Energy Board had folks from all kinds of disciplines, which I thought was unusual, because prior to that I was on boards where it was just all utility executives. But you didn't have people from one industry, you had people from different industries to bring a totally, I would say, comprehensive perspective on areas.
One of the things that has been so valuable about being on the Keystone Energy Board, I think I've been on around 10 or 15 years, I've kind of lost track, is that it is a great way to hear other people or hear people from industry talk about kind of what constraints they operate under, what they see as the upcoming issues, and get a really good sense of how they see the world and how kind of what they see as the challenges going forward.
Later, of course, once I was out of Congress, I actually was, I believe it's when I went on the Energy Board of the Keystone Center.
Ended up passing while he was still in Congress.
So there was one regulation in particular that I worked on where we were working on regulating the utility sector, in particular coal-fired power plants, and we were very worried about how to make sure that people complied, but also make sure that it didn't adversely affect grid reliability. We didn't really have that expertise in-house, so what I was able to do was call up a couple people that I knew from the Energy Board, and they were able to give us some great advice about what to do. We incorporated that in what we wound up proposing, and I think as a result, we wound up with a regulation that did protect grid reliability while still having the focus of addressing the environmental issues. And I don't think that would have happened if I hadn't had the years of experience I'd had on the Energy Board.
Keystone is unique in that it gets us out of our echo chambers. If you go to example, I worked for a very large industry trade association for years, and it was a joy to work there. But you find sometimes when you're at those meetings, you're inside an echo chamber because you're part of your industry. And that's okay, we all learn from that. But stepping back from that and being able to attend an Energy Board session really gives you the input from the other sectors and other pieces of the equation that you need to think about, because we can't think globally about problem solving in this arena unless we understand where everyone is coming from.
Thank you. Truly a remarkable group that we're so honored to be have as a part of Keystone. I'd like to now introduce Paula Gold-Williams, co-chair of our Board of Trustees, who will be welcoming to the stage our conversation partner and our final awardee.
Okay, so we're almost done, but we have another wonderful highlight for the evening, our last one. As we celebrate 50 years of Keystone's work building bridges and finding common ground, it is especially meaningful to honor leaders who bring the spirit of the halls of Congress. Tonight, I am honored to introduce Congressman Joe Neguse, who represents Colorado's 2nd Congressional District, which happens to be Keystone's home base since its inception. Throughout his public service, Congressman Neguse has been a champion of the environment, wildfire resilience, and public lands. And while he has been a passionate advocate of the communities he serves, he is always willing to have the conversations. He also brings something rare and powerful to the national conversation, a deep commitment to bipartisan and principled collaboration. It is that spirit that makes him such a fitting recipient of tonight's Keystone Leadership Award. Joining him for tonight's fireside conversation is Dr. Carrie Besnet-Hauser, President and CEO of the Trust for Public Lands. Carrie has dedicated her career to expanding access to nature, conserving open spaces, and strengthening communities across the country. She also brings deep experience in education and public service, having previously served as president of Colorado Mountain College. Together, Congressman Neguse and Dr. Hauser represent two powerful voices for conversation, conservation, education, and common ground. Please join me in congratulating Congressman Joe Neguse on receiving the Keystone Leadership Award, and welcome Dr. Hauser to the stage.
Thank you.
I will give it back.
Terrific. It sounds good.
Mr. Congressman, you've been busy tonight.
It's been a busy evening, but thank you for having me. What a wonderful opportunity to be here.
Well, I first want to thank the Keystone Policy Center for the invitation to be part of the celebration tonight. And I also want to congratulate my colleague, Jennifer Morris from the Nature Conservancy for being one of the honorees tonight. And I'm proud to be here on behalf of Trust for Public Land. Our team is right here in the front. Our organizations share a very long tradition of advancing work at the intersection of policy, community, and the environment. And that connection is reflected in our close ties, including with my colleague, Jeff Danter, who's Executive Vice President of TPL and a member of the Keystone Board. So Congressman Neguse, thank you for the honor of joining us tonight. And he's no stranger to us who care deeply about public service and the future of our country. I've had the honor of following Joe since his early days in Colorado in public service, and I will call him Joe if that is okay with him, yes, so that you all are wondering why I'm doing that. So I've watched Joe's leadership.
Everyone calls me Joe.
I know,
there's a particular rule.
I always, just, familiarity. Have watched your leadership journey from University of Colorado Regent to head of Colorado's Department of Regulatory Agencies, and now as a very influential and principled voice in Congress. And having worked with Congressman Neguse, both in my time at Colorado Mountain College, 2 campuses in newly drawn 3 campuses of Colorado Mountain College in Congressional District 2, and now certainly for Trust for Public Land, I've seen firsthand his deep commitment to collaboration in the communities that he serves and to the greater good. So I have a few questions. Are you ready for these?
Yeah, fire away.
All right, let's go. About your journey, your leadership, and the moment we're in right now. So here we go. Your career arc. A son of Eritrean immigrants and a University of Colorado undergrad and law student to congressman. That's quite a journey. It's been extraordinary. Is your TNC table over there?
That might be my staff.
Yeah, it could be, or your staff. How have those early roles and this current one shaped your approach to public service and to your ability to help public dialogue?
It's a great question. Well, first, like any politician, I'll pivot just briefly to say it's an incredible honor and a privilege to receive this recognition, in particular from Keystone Policy Center, for a variety of different reasons. Of course, the fact that I have the honor of representing Keystone Policy Center in the United States Congress geographically, but also rarely are you given an opportunity to receive this kind of recognition from an organization whose values you deeply share. And I think the work that Keystone Policy Center does is so vital in terms of restoring some of the structures within civic society that I think are broken right now. And it does dovetail, I suppose, with the question that you posed, because at least in the opportunities I've had to serve in public life, maybe it's unique to Colorado, I suppose, but we just do things a little differently. There's sort of a premium,
Better.
as you know. Well,
Better.
I would certainly say better,
Better.
And all the Coloradans in the room would agree with me on that front. But I think there's a premium on trying to find common ground that is very unique to Colorado and kind of the ethos that we practice in our state. And so at every public service opportunity that I've had, whether it was serving in Governor Hickenlooper's cabinet as the head of the agency that you mentioned, where he would always remind us at every cabinet meeting, of course, John is now in the United States Senate, but he would remind us every cabinet meeting there's no margin in making enemies. And that was kind of his mantra throughout his service as governor, and a reminder to everyone that at the end of the day, we were there to serve everyone. And I will say it's tougher, I think, today in this national political climate we find ourselves in that's sort of simultaneously bursting, with empty noise, while at the same time, vitriolic, kind of debate has engulfed the country. And it's very difficult in that kind of ecosystem to find common ground. But we do our best to chart a path forward, and that's, I think, what we're called to do. And obviously, Keystone Policy Center plays a vital role, I think, in doing the same.
And not to draw on a pun, but there's common ground in public lands. Right?
Sure, yeah.
And unity. And you've earned wide praise for your collaborative leadership, especially in your role in the Bipartisan Wildfire Caucus. Thank you very much for that. That kind of bridge building feels especially critical right now, as public lands are increasingly caught in the crosshairs, whether through proposals to sell them off or staffing cuts that undermine the very agencies charged with protecting them. And yet, we continue to see strong public consensus. Just ask in the room, how about our public lands?
All right.
Even in one of the most divisive elections in history, voters across our country, from Florida to California, supported public land ballot measures. TPL helped with 23 of those across the country in every form of community, red, blue, large, small, urban, rural, all 23, 100% of those won. It says a lot. And our polling at Trust for Public Land shows that more than 74%, literally 3/4 of Americans across party lines, oppose selling or closing public lands. So in response to the staffing cuts, you introduced the Protect Our Parks Act and Save Our Forests Act to rehire park and forest staff and restore the capacity of our public land agencies, and TPL and certainly other conservation partners certainly applaud you for that. So given that clear public support and the political challenges, what are your recommendations to move forward? How do we protect these places, expand access, and keep public lands a point of unity and not division?
A couple things I would say. First, just contextually, my passion for public lands, of course, born from the same experiences that I suspect so many of you in this room have had, formative experiences as a child, enjoying the public lands that we're blessed to have in Colorado. But also, I represent a district, as you know, that is rich in public lands. Over 60% of the district is either federal or state public land. And just, again, by way of context, I represent a massive district, so it's larger than 8 states, Maryland, New Jersey. No offense to anyone who's from one of those 8 states on the eastern seaboard, but it's a really large district.
Yes, it is.
And so a lot, the issues that I pursue, here in Washington, D.C., of course, the problems or the challenges that I'm trying to solve are all ultimately shaped by what's happening on the ground back in Colorado: wildfire resiliency, watershed protection, and the protection of public lands. And we made a lot of progress in the last Congress and the last administration, of course, generational investments in our public lands, both in terms of new wilderness areas, national monuments, but also a real sense of purpose in terms of investments in protecting our forests, which had been largely neglected. And so, generational investments by virtue of the actions we took in the last Congress. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a different situation today. And what I would suggest, to your point, Carrie, I think you're right, all the empirical data demonstrates very clearly Americans writ large support public lands preservation. Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat or unaffiliated, you're a hunter, you're a rancher, you're an angler, you're a conservationist, you care about protecting public lands and about your way of life. Certainly that's how we feel out in the West. And so the way we've approached it is not all that dissimilar from the work that Keystone does. Starting with simple conversations with colleagues who have a very different worldview about a lot of other issues, but nonetheless may be willing to find common ground with me on this particular issue. And we've had, just in the last few weeks, we've worked with some of our Republican colleagues to try to avert some of the more catastrophic proposals that have been made in the Congress. We haven't succeeded on all fronts, far from it, but we're making progress. Last thing I'll say, the Bipartisan Wildfire Caucus. We had one simple rule when we created that caucus, two simple rules, I suppose. You had to care about trying to address what is a crisis in the West in terms of wildfires that are metastasizing in the Rocky Mountain West. And two, you could only join if you joined with a member of the opposing political party, which has kept it small, as you can imagine. It's not the largest caucus in the Congress, but the members who participate care about the work that they're doing, right? They're in it for the right reasons. They're willing to partner in good faith with you to try to move the ball forward, and we've had small successes. In the aggregate, those build, so the work continues.
Thank you for that. And I might draw just one other layer to some of those divides, and that's urban-rural.
Sure.
And oftentimes, you can sort of point to that almost more so than party sometimes. And your district spans the gamut, right? You have parts of Denver's Front Range, highly populated, lots of voters, and you have the western slope of Colorado. And with issues like wildfire, housing, wolf reintroduction, and water shortages impacting both urban and rural areas, how do we build connections across communities to find shared solutions?
Yeah. Well, you've just described a litany of challenges that I'm happy to say. How much time do you have tonight? But
all fun.
Yeah,
all
exactly,
fun.
exactly. Here's what I would say. Our district, I believe this firmly, and again, it's born from spending a lot of time in the district over the last 6 years and engaging with constituents and holding 100 town halls in the 12 counties that I represent. It's broadly reflective of our state. And as you said, you have these large urban areas. The city of Fort Collins, it's the fourth largest city in our state. Colorado State University, of course, is based there. And then simultaneously, I represent counties that have less than 1,200 people who live in counties that, again, in and of themselves are larger than some U.S. states. So it gives you a sense of proportion in terms of the makeup of the district. And of course, very different challenges that the ranchers on the western slope, who I'm privileged to represent, are facing than perhaps families on the suburban Front Range. From my perspective, it's one of the parts that I love most about this job that I'm so privileged to have, because you learn a lot about bridging the gap between people who see the world fundamentally different. And one thing I enjoy the most, I will just say, is when I do town halls in these different areas, is not, of course, I gain and glean a lot from the feedback I get from constituents. Not all positive, it runs the gamut, but also the opportunity for constituents to hear each other, right? And in this polarized political climate we find ourselves in, I can think of no better antidote than giving people the opportunity to be able to hear from people who have a different worldview than their own. Life would be pretty boring if you spent all your time visiting and talking to folks who agreed with you on everything. So with respect to the many issues that you've listed, and we could go through kind of instructive examples, in every case, any solution that we've been able to implement has started with listening. And it feels like a lost art in our state of politics today. We're kind of obsessed with town halls, much to the chagrin of my staff. And because they can get pretty contentious sometimes, but in the last 4 months, we've done more town halls than every member of Colorado's entire House delegation combined. And we do it, well, but it's not meant, I suppose it's not meant as a superlative as I describe this wonderful achievement, but I offer it just because in my view, it's actually not something that I would necessarily applaud, because what does it say about the current state of our politics that so few of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle are unwilling to engage with their constituents in that way? How are you ever going to get to a solution on issues as complex as the affordable housing crisis or management of our federal lands without having a conversation? So that's my view. Maybe it's a bit too simplistic, but that's the approach we've taken.
That's why you're good at your job. So closing question. Some of us in the room were just at the Outside Summit and Festival in Denver, and you were recognized there for a lot of this work. So let's pivot a little bit to outdoor recreation. So Colorado's been a leader when it comes to connecting outdoor recreation with conservation and economic development, showing what's possible when communities invest in both people and place. What advice and wisdom would you offer other regions looking to harness the power of the outdoors to drive economic growth, build community, and protect the landscapes that we love and that define them?
Yeah, I will sound like I'm sort of belaboring the point here, but the synergies that are generated from bringing people from all different walks of life together for a common purpose cannot be understated. And outdoor recreation, public lands conservation is a perfect example, crystallization of this, where in Colorado, as you said, you have this unity between folks who are very invested in the outdoor recreation industry. It's one of the biggest industries in Colorado. Anyone who has traveled to our state, of course, knows that to be the case. You have environmentalists and conservationists who are passionate about protecting these lands that we hold in public trust for the generations that will succeed us. You have sort of downstream business owners, all who have skin in the game with respect to supporting this thriving industry. And so a lot of it is just honestly bringing folks together in a constructive way and then finding ways to leverage, I guess, economies of scale, if you will, right? Having everybody pushing for the same thing. It's one of the reasons we did something similar, of course, in the Congress. The Explore Act, which some folks here were involved in helping us shepherd across the finish line, was a good example of this, right? Of building a coalition that was broad enough that you could get something like that, of that magnitude done. So I would encourage everyone, I mean, we can't talk about outdoor recreation without saying, we would love to welcome you to Colorado anytime.
Anytime.
You want to come rafting on the Colorado River or, traverse Eagle's Nest Wilderness or hike the Continental Divide. There's a lot of opportunities for you. We welcome you all there. Of course, this being Keystone Policy Group's annual convening, I suspect I don't have to convince you. But
yes. Thank you, Congressman Neguse.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, Shelby, another one's in the books.
We're closing this out. But first, I have to take the MC's prerogative to tell you that, as you could tell from Sally Quinn's interview, journalism is about crisis, and we're connoisseurs of people who behave badly. In fact, there's a very good book on it called My Bad, 25 years of public apologies and the terrible behaviors that inspired them. And unfortunately, tonight, I feel called upon to add my own page to the back of the appendix and say, I have slandered Clint Vance for 15 years in a row. And I should probably say, I apologize and retract the remarks, all 15 years of them, and say that Clint is a brilliant lawyer and a great friend and a wonderful asset to Keystone. And while I'm at it, what a great set of people. Bob Craig, Terry Craig, who's here tonight. I went with Bob Craig once to the forbidden zone of the Bohemian Grove, and walking around with him among the great and the good of American society was sort of like walking around with James Bond. He had quite a reputation, most of it good, and was a force and a dynamo whose work continues 50 years later. And it is worth also mentioning that you, Christine, have done marvelously in carrying it on and building it better. So we have an even better set of guests tonight. And so you, my friend, should never forget for a single minute that you didn't grow around my heart, but in it.
Oh, thank you.
All right, that's it.
Thank you. Well,
I'm out.
we cannot top that. And thank you all. Thank you to everyone who supported this event. Your dollars allow us to continue the work that we do. It's what we use to seed our projects. It's how we support our work. It means everything. Thank you especially to Denton's and PepsiCo for all that you have done for this as presenting sponsors. And we will see you next year as we launch into the next 50 years with much gratitude. Thank you.